In the 18th century, at least a third of the Earth was still a mystery. Nobody in Europe knew what was in the blank space to the south. But there was a legend that waiting to be discovered was a great southern continent. In the late 18th century, 3 great voyages of discovery were made, which would push the borders of the British Empire to the ends of the earth. They were led by Captain James Cook. In just over a decade, his genius as a navigator and chart maker would add a third to the map of the known world. For many, he was the greatest explorer in history. For others, a ruthless conqueror. Between 1768 and 1775, James Cook, the obsessive discovering genius, had crossed oceans, charted new lands, and discovered new peoples. He had secured his place in history. Its goal was to make North America British. So precise, in fact, it was still being used well into the 20th century. After 5 months at sea, Endeavour rounded the tip of South America and entered the waters that would make Cook famous, the vast and mysterious Pacific Ocean. 3 months later, Cook and his crew arrived at the island called Tahiti. The face of the sun. It wasn't this that caught the crew's attention.
It's heaven on earth.
It is £10,000 to come on this
40
voyage.
degrees south and found nothing. No sign of the southern land. Went back to his secret orders, not having discovered the great southern continent. You are to proceed in search of discover it, or fall in with the land discovered by Tasman. New Zealand. Endeavour dropped anchor at what's now Gisborne, about halfway up. Two diverse cultures was all too began to go wrong. For a reason unclear, Tirakau grabbed Cook's sword, and not the great continent. For the next 6 months, charted what turned out to be the 2 islands that we now know make up New Zealand, and he claimed them. His final map is a masterpiece.
He turns to his wife's cousin, 17-year-old midshipman Isaac Smith, and says, "Isaac, you shall go first."
New Holland was mind-blowing for Joseph Banks and his fellow naturalist, Dr. Solander. Everything there was so different from any other place on Earth. The scientists collected samples of 130 unknown species of plant, including one named after Banks himself, Banksia. A marine minefield of treacherous coral outcrops over 1,200 miles long, the same distance as London to Moscow. On June the 11th, 1770, Endeavour smashed onto the reef. There were 100 men on board Endeavour, the charts of New Zealand and the east coast of New Holland. This was a priceless treasure. Endeavour limped for 3 days towards the coastline. James Cook watched plumes of smoke rising from the land. Smoke meant people. People only settled the whole voyage. He claimed the entire east coast of New Holland for Britain. It was an act which even today some regard as the illegal theft of a continent from its indigenous people. Endeavour had finally rejoined the known world and now headed for the Dutch port of Batavia, modern Jakarta.